welcome again to our tax automation series on OneSource tax provision functionality. So let's talk dataset parameters today. So these are a set of rules that will dictate how things are treated within the data set. So we have several types of parameters within OneSource tax provision. We've got system parameters, and those all reside in the administration area. And typically those parameters will impact any data set within the software. Then we have what we call dataset parameters. And those are dataset specific, and we have unit parameters, which are at the unit level. So today we are going to focus on the dataset parameters. So those are the set of rules that you will see that are located here. There'll be a parameter name, a parameter type, and then a parameter value. But before we get there, I have exported out a list of parameters. How do you get there? So if you go into your help manual, and go all the way down towards the bottom, there's a section called reference items. Within that, you will find your systems parameters, dataset parameters, and unit dataset parameters reference. So this is the area that we're going to focus on today. So I kind of went through and took a look and came up with some of the ones that I think are most used, I would say, and most valuable. And some of these things will get turned on automatically. Other things we will have to turn on, but just kind of wanted to take you through a few key ones. So advanced liability posting. This is one where this dictates the auto payable posting. So if you've got a parameter value of no, then things will not be posted automatically to the payables. And if it's yes, it will post to the payables automatically. So this governs like anything within your return basis provision. If I jump back in, so this is the piece that takes care of posting your return basis number over to the payables. So let me just run this and show you what we're talking about. So this is going to take care of posting this line over to your payables, because that's the auto posting. So it handles the return basis provision. And in another session, I go over things that are non-cash in nature that already have automatic posting built in. And in this instance, it's the NC_RTP. So our RTP entries are set up to auto post. So if you don't want those to post automatically, then you can deactivate that. Next on our list is the roll forward. So these two handle what your roll forward column is going to be called and where it's going to be located. So within OneSource, we also have a deferred roll forward setup. And it is located in the administrative area. So as I mentioned earlier, anything at the administrative level dictates what happens in every data set. So that will be your columns that are here, where you set up your columns. But more importantly, if you go into manage configurations and you go into your deferred balances area, we can choose a subtotal column name, and we can choose the placement of that subtotal column as well. But if we are in a data set and we want that to be different from what we have set up for the system for any particular reason, we can create that by coming back into the dataset parameters and changing. So if you noticed, I only had like 2 columns in the system wide, and it had a column placement of 1. But here we're saying we want the adjusted, we want to call it adjusted beginning balance, and we want that to be in column 5. If I go back out quickly and just kind of go take a look at my manage roll forwards, you will see that unlike in the system, I have a variety of different columns, where I think in the system when I just had 2 columns that were set up. So federal benefit of state is another one that is used all times. The default when the software is set up is for Fed, but this is going to dictate where the federal benefit of state will calculate. So if you select federal, the system is going to attach the federal benefit of state on your deferreds to the federal calculation. If you choose state, it is going to attach that to your state calculation. So let's just go back in and take a look at what it is in my particular data set. And you can see it's set up for federal. So if I go in to my reporting and I run my deferred balances report, what you will notice in the options is that the federal benefit of state is attached to the federal. If I run my tax provision, again, my deferred provision number at the federal area will be inclusive of the federal benefit of state. So this deferred tax provision number includes the federal benefit of state. So right now we've got it, it's minus 113,323. I'm going to jump right in here and change that to state to illustrate. Save it. And if I go back into my reporting and I run my tax provision again, you will see that the deferred provision number at the federal has been changed, because the federal benefit of state is now going to attach to the state deferred provision number. And it's taken a little while to calculate because it has to recalculate everything. So if I look at my deferred, you'll notice now my number is 21,025. And if I go into my deferred balances and select my options again, what you will see is that my FBOS is now attached to my state. Mass update rates. So there are 3 things under here. There's a country rates, there's a currency, and there are the state rates. These are used if you want to mass populate rates across a variety of entities. And what will happen is, in the case of the country rates, if you have set up your unit in the administrative level to be a particular country, the rate that you put in for that country will then be populated, and it is the statutory rate for the country. Similarly, for state rates, any jurisdiction that you have set up at the administration level, once you put those statutory rates in for current, beginning, and ending deferred, those will attach to any unit that you activate within that jurisdiction. And currency can be used similarly to country rates, where your FX rates would be the same within a country. So the currency that you have selected for the unit will attach if you're using these rates. So where these pull, let's go take a look at states first. So when you create a state, a lot of times we're probably not aware of it, but there are rates off to the right. So if you put the dataset parameter in for state rates, it will activate a screen that will allow you to kind of mass populate these rates. So let me just go in here. I'm not sure if I actually have one that's been activated. Let's see. And no. And you can generally tell, because if that parameter has not been set up, it will not show up in the drop-down list. So let's go add it. State, oops. And it's going to be alphanumeric. And that is going to be, let's see if I got my parameters, and it's going to be Y for yes. and save. So now if I go back out and select my drop-down list, I should see, oops, state rates at the bottom. There we go. Now the currency rates will also work the same. So if you have populated your rates at the administration level, you can copy from admin and then do populate all, and it will populate this area. So let's go ahead and do that. This will overwrite all state rates with default rates. So let's hit populate all, select yes, oops, and I can save my changes. So as you'll see, it brought in every jurisdiction. Some of them don't have anything, so you could make the changes. This is really helpful, especially if you've got a lot of units within the software and there are statutory changes that happen during the year. You can easily add that to your unit by simply coming in and changing the rate. Instead of having to change, let's say 50 or 60 different ones, you just make the change once and it will be populated in the 50 or 60 different units. You will always have the ability, if you're using this mass rate population on any of them, be it the currency or the FX or statutory, at the unit level, you will always have the option to change and not use the statutory if you don't want. So you can always go into edit and kind of override. So right now you can see we're using override rates. If I uncheck that, it would go to 0 because I have no rate populated in the state rates table. So you'll always have the ability to override and put in whatever rate you need to put in if something breaks from the standard. Remember, all of these things are set up to kind of help to cut down on the amount of work you have to do and efficiency, add efficiency to your process. The payable buckets for provision and for RTP, there is a separate episode where we go through tax adjustments and how payables, how things get automatically sent over to the payables. But in essence, these are rules that will dictate the posting and posting to what we call payable buckets or accounts in the software. Right, and that, in essence, are some of the key parameters at the dataset level. Look forward to seeing you on another session.